But first, the former Chief Inspector of Schools in England, Sir Michael Wilshaw, has said it's time to stop issuing one-phrase judgments on schools, such as outstanding or inadequate, because they give parents false comfort. He also told the Education Committee that many schools don't deserve their outstanding rating. Christina Cooper reports.
Ofsted has come under close scrutiny following the death of the head teacher Ruth Perry. Her family says she took her own life after inspectors downgraded her school from outstanding to inadequate. The Education Committee didn't discuss her case as it's the subject of a coroner's inquest, but it is examining wider concerns about inspections before the new Ofsted Chief Inspector, Sir Martin Oliver, starts work. The Ofsted mantra is raising standards and improving lives. The Conservative, Caroline Ansell, wondered if it was living up to those words.
What does the evidence tell us about whether and how far Ofsted inspections do actually result in school improvement?
According to Carole Willis from the National Foundation for Educational Research, the evidence is mixed.
Some schools can get into a downward spiral once they receive negative or lower Ofsted judgments, but there is also evidence that finds schools just failing an inspection do improve over the next 2 or 3 years.
The National Education Union is holding an inquiry into school inspections with the aim of coming up with an alternative system. It's being chaired by Jim Knight, a Labour former education minister who sits in the House of Lords. He'd like to see a radical shake-up.
The politics of this is schools ministers end up being really worried about looking soft on standards, so they crank the pressure up all the time. And now that we see the impact through forced academisation, through a number of different things as a result of Ofsted judgments, we have a whole system that's operating in fear and in stress.
Under the current system, Ofsted delivers a judgment on schools. Outstanding, good, requires improvement or inadequate. Jim Knight says it's part of a name and shame culture that exists in many parts of the public sector in England.
We have single phrase judgments and it's all very name and shame and high stakes, and yeah, it's great for the media, but I'm not sure it's great for improvement. I think it's something that we should want to move away from, and we should have a system that has a duty of care towards the people who work in that system.
He thought the inspection regime was driving teaching staff out of the profession. The committee also heard from Sir Michael Wilshaw, who was in charge of Ofsted from 2012 until 2016. As a former head teacher, he said he valued Ofsted hugely, but he changed his mind on using a single phrase to sum a school up.
I think the days of the one-word judgment are coming to an end. I mean, I was a big supporter of it, but I'm not anymore, because for all the reasons that Jim has outlined and many others have outlined, they're not giving parents an accurate picture of what's happening in the school. It's providing parents with false comfort.
And he cast doubt on the accuracy of the ratings.
Ofsted says that nearly 90% of schools are good. That's nonsense. That's complete nonsense. 90% of schools are good. Having seen some of the schools judged good over the last few years, I would not say were good.
He complained that Ofsted wasn't looking closely enough at the quality of teaching, and he suggested moving away from routine inspections of every school and focusing on schools and parts of the country that needed extra support. He said primary schools in England were doing much better than secondaries, some of which he described as abysmal. But Michael Wilshaw said that although the committee had been alerted to Ofsted's deficiencies, the education system had improved immensely since the organisation was set up in 1992.
I'm old enough to remember what standards were like in our schools in London. I mean, I'm a London teacher. How bad, how low standards were in the 70s and 80s and much of the 90s. They were terrible. They were shocking.
He reassured MPs that schools had come a long way since then, and Ofsted had played a part in raising standards.
Christina Cooper there. Last week, the